How did you and why did you become a crack addict or a drug addict?
Yeah,
Why did you do that? How did that happen and why?
Here's what I think, because I spent a lot of time in the inner city too, with so many of my Black friends that are fatherless, and we all got along. My parents divorced when I was 7 years old. Divorces were not common back in 1968.
Right.
I got put into a new school, and I was the only kid that was coming from a broken family. So it was so awkward. I became very quiet. I didn't fit in. I felt like, we'd have this. And then my mom, when she did remarry, then I had, you got two dads? The kids didn't understand. I felt inside like I didn't fit in. And fatherless is, in this country, they did a poll in a prison in Kansas and said, how many people are there? These are felons, everybody. They're in prison. Both their parents waited to got married, then had the child, and were still married while they were in prison. 0%. That's how important the family unit is, I believe. Now I became a show-off, and either I went talk or a show-off. And then I manifested into cocaine. There's a lot of stories, but
did you start out with pot, or did you start out with?
No, I hated pot. It was
you started out with cocaine?
I started out with I became an addict, and like with the addiction, with owing the mafia money for football betting, but also drinking and then cocaine. As soon as I was introduced to cocaine, I could get to where I wanted to be just like that. And people, this is what I tell everybody. With addiction, it does three things. It's false courage. Everybody knows that, you can get false courage, whatever.
Right.
But it masks pain. The biggest thing it does, it masks pain, that deep inner pain. Okay.
Yes.
When I could mask that pain and be out there, it would solve both my problems. When I ended up here, and then I became a very functional addict. In my book, I say addiction affects everyone, no matter how many forks you eat with. What I meant by that, I've lived in the streets with no fork, all the way up to being proper people with 4 forks. You know how many people come up to me all the time and say, Mike, I had addiction issues too. And they might be the big CEO of a billion-dollar company or a big politician. They're afraid to say it, but there are functioning addicts everywhere, and it affects everything. Well, for me, I was a functioning addict for about 20 years, and then I got into crack cocaine, and even my dealers. You guys got to hear this. The dealers did an intervention on me. In 2008, I was living downtown Minneapolis. I had a warrant for my arrest, and I come out of the room, and all 3 dealers are standing there. They had never met each other, but they knew of each other. And I go, "What is this?" They go, "Mike, you've been up for 14 days. We're cutting you off." And I go, "I've only been up for 10 or whatever." I'm arguing. He goes, the one drug dealer shook his head. "What's wrong with you?" And he leaves because they were all against. They wanted me to quit. But anyway, I go, "What is this, an intervention?" He goes, "Call it whatever you want." So my friend from the project of Chicago, his name is Joe, went downtown to the streets of Minneapolis. He told everyone, I didn't know at the time, "You don't sell to this guy. You see some white guy with a mustache, you don't sell to him, or we're coming after you." So now I'm upstairs. And the last dealer, Ty, he sits down and he goes, "How much crack you got left?" And I look, and he tries to wait me out. You guys, I look over and he fell asleep. It's 2:30 in the morning and I'm carpet farming. I'm out of crack, scraping my pipe. I see him sleep. I hit down the streets of Minneapolis. For an hour, I couldn't get crack anywhere. I came back upstairs and he's waiting up for me. He said, "How'd that work out for you?" And I'm all upset. And he goes, "Man, you've been telling us for years that you're going to quit someday and you're going to come back and help us all out of this addiction world we're living in." And he goes, "We're not going to let you die on us." He goes, "Give me your phone. I'm going to take a picture so you can put it on that book you've been bragging you're going to write someday." That picture is on the cover of my book, everybody. And 2 of those dealers are born-again Christians that work for me right now.
That's
and
amazing.
Changed lives.
And so how were you able to overcome overnight? You quit drugs overnight. Long story short, and because of time, how were you able to quit overnight?
Yeah, that was a year later on January 16, 2009. It was a prayer to God. Even though I didn't have this personal relationship with him, I would always pray. And I said, and I knew that I had a big calling. Everybody, we all have big callings. But I knew if I went one more day, that someone else would be called, someone else would be picked for whatever was the rest of my life would be. And so I prayed that night, and my prayer was, God, I said, if you have this calling for me this day, I'm going to wake up tomorrow and never have the desire again for any of these addictions. And I said, and then I'm all yours. Well, I woke up in the morning and my prayer was answered. I go, something's different. I've never had the desire was gone. Now, I did go, a couple of months later, I went to a church where I wanted to find out why I was an addict in the first place. And that's where I told you a lot of it came from, the broken home that I had and the fatherlessness. And so that's where it was. It was the grace. God gave me that. I thought I was saved at that time because it was so different. I'm going, wow, I don't even feel like doing any drugs or doing, it was just gone. And it was very exciting.
So let me ask, when you were a drug addict, did you live on the streets or were you living in your own, were you living in your own house or apartment or were you like a street drug addict?
No. For 20 years, I was married, had raised a family. That was the cocaine, and I owned a bar for 13 years. Not a good place for an addict. I was a very functioning addict, like I say.
Okay.
I owned a bar. So then it was devastating when I had to sell the bar. And at that time, I switched to crack cocaine, which had a lot to do with it. And I sold the bar in 2003 and I invented MyPillow in 2004. Now people say, I didn't quit crack till 2009. Crack addicts and stuff go, that's impossible. This is what God did to me. It was like a separation of two people. Over here being my addiction and over here being, I wouldn't go to those shows. There's no way I could be tweaking out windows with doing pillow shows and stuff. So if you read my book, it's like this miracle of this even coming to fruition while I'm being an addict at the same time. Then it all collapsed in like 2007. In 2008, I was in the streets for probably off and on different months, but it wasn't in the physical streets. I'd be living in, my drug dealer's place for, I'd stay there for a couple of weeks or whatever. Or, I've been in probably 4 of the worst hoods in the United States: Milwaukee, Kansas City, Memphis, and Las Vegas. I've lived there for, even my drug dealer back home would say, get out of there, you're in such danger. But I had just no fear. And I look back now and say, wow, God protected me during that time.
So let me ask, so you were not raised with your father. So did you?
Stepfather.
I'm sorry?
Stepfather, I came on 2 years later. So yeah.
So did you finally reconcile with your real father, your earthly father? Did you ever reconcile?
Oh yeah. We were never, he just wasn't there. But yeah, we would reconcile, and he passed away a few years ago, 3-4 years ago, I guess. In fact, actually, he passed away the day after my wedding, and 2 years ago.
Oh, okay.
But he, I never got. There was so many father issues there, but I would say over the last 10 years of his life, he should have died, and I think that God kept him alive so we could become closer.
Nice. And did you forgive your mother for bringing other men into your life?
Yeah. When I got saved on February 18, 2017, all of those forgivenesses were gone. I mean, it was so easy for me. Like, God had forgiven me, and I even forgave myself for terrible things I did in the 1980s that I would never do against my moral compass. And things that I could never forgive myself for. Yeah. So yeah, I forgave myself for all of that. And one of the things that I see a miracle, everybody, I got to tell you this is with my record, I never thought I could come within a mile of a White House, right? Well, I was a big Elvis Presley fan, huge. It was my first concert as a little kid. And there was a famous picture of Elvis Presley and Richard Nixon. And I'm going, wow. And I didn't think, wow, you got to be a president to meet Elvis Presley. It was the other way around. I go, wow, I'll never be an Elvis Presley to be able to meet a president. It was in my head like, wow, how fortunate was Elvis to be able to meet a president. Now, you guys, when I finally was invited to the White House in 2017, after I was saved, I walked in that door, and the first picture inside the White House is Elvis Presley and Richard Nixon. And I just got goosebumps. And I went and sat down, and there was 10 of us invited there for this manufacturer summit. The President Trump comes in, sits next to me, and we go live to the nation, and you only see us two. All my friends at home are going, some of them still on crack, going, what is this crack addict sitting next to the president?
And like,
Jesus is real, because this would be impossible.
Amazing. So let me ask, excuse me, do you have perfect peace now?
Do I what?
Do you have perfect peace?
I have to pray every day and stay in the Word, but I do have a peace that even though I've been attacked and my fortune's gone, I've done what God's asked me to do, and I'm going to keep going, and I do have a peace about that. Do I still worry? I still worry about my employees and my MyPillow, and I worry about them. I tend to worry more about others than myself because I feel protected by God, but I got to give it to Him and have that peace. And I'll tell you, for a guy that could never speak in front of people, God sure gave me a peace about doing that.
And so do you have perfect peace?
Well, I don't know if anybody ever has perfect peace. I have a peace that knowing I'm going to heaven, that I'm going, for eternity. I don't have, I want to get as many people to join me as possible, my loved ones. And do I get frustrated sometimes with, I want to shake people, some of my own relatives, and go, come on, what's wrong? Look at me. I got through it, God, by the grace of God. And
why don't you drop your anger so you can have perfect peace? Why not just drop the anger?
Well, I guess, I think my any anger issues, it takes a lot, but I think a lot of that left me when I was saved. When you talk about anger, I was never an angry, and people that know me, I didn't have this anger, but I was surprised there was I guess I had blinders on there, but I think I was very much freed of an anger demon that would be there. I think that's long gone. But I believe anybody can get angry. Jesus got angry when he flipped over the tables, remember?
But since anger is not of God, and anger separates you from God and keeps you away from God, why don't you just drop it so you can be one with God right now?
Well, I think I have done that. And when you say anger, I didn't know where are you seeing anger?
I'm sorry?
Where are you seeing the anger?
No, I'm asking, do you have it? And you said, yeah, you have some.
I don't think I got rid of that. I didn't think I ever had it, but then I had it when, I got married. My wife called me out. She said, you still have some deep-rooted anger. But when I got saved on February 18th, 2017, I think I let that go. There was a lot of forgiveness for, things that I had done and then also for my father, for my mother, all that. I believe, it was a complete release. I have enemies. The reason I can get along with even the ones that attack me every day, I forgive them and I can deal with them. I don't get angry towards them. I guess 2 years ago, everybody, you all see me get angry at a lawyer in a deposition. And I believe I said the word, called him an A something. And it made national news because how could this Christian guy get angry? He attacked my employees. And that wasn't an inner anger. That was an anger. How dare you bring my employees into it? I think there's a righteous anger, and then there's one that you can be set free of that's deep rooted, and to get that perfect peace you're talking about. But I think anyone could be upset that someone's unjustly attacking someone that I care for, which are my employees.
Which is easy for you to accept or believe, that you are a sinner or all your sins have been forgiven?
For me, the sinner part was easy. I knew I was a sinner. We're all sinners in there.
But how about now, today in your life, which is easier, to believe you're a sinner or all your sins have been forgiven?
I think it's all our sinners have been forgiven because but I don't use that as an excuse to sin. There's people that do that. I'm going, hey, my sins are going to be forgiven. I'm going to run out and sin. I don't consciously sin, but it's nice to know that they are already forgiven. And I think that for me, it was harder for me because I use mathematics to show that God exists. And that's my book. Hence my book, What Are the Odds? In my book, I say, if I would have stuff all my life happen that a 1 in a million, a 1 in a billion, or this is impossible. When do you add them all get together and you consider it a miracle? So for me, I had 14 near-death experiences. I've been everywhere from no forks to four forks. God was always chasing me, and I was always saying, my incorrigible self, show me more, show me more, show me more. He would show me miracle after miracle after miracle. I'd each say, show me more. It wasn't until you show a crack addict that all of a sudden is friends with a president. I'm going, this is impossible without God.
Yeah.
And then it leads up to February 18, 2017. And God had showed me enough. I'm going, I'm all yours.